Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Presentation Skills and Storytelling for Business. Hi, I'm John Schweitzer, and with me is Phyllis Michaelitis. We've been international presenters, trainers, and storytellers for Xerox Corporation and other businesses and universities around the world for over 30 years each. Phyllis and I will tell you our stories and how we went from stage fright, just like many of you probably have today, to success as storytellers and trainers. We'll share not only our experience and insights, but also those of highly successful people we've worked with from around the world. We'll also share with you some of the skills and knowledge you'll need to successfully share your story and succeed with your next presentation.
Thanks, John. That's right. We do have a lot to share. But before we begin, I wanted to tell everyone why we included stories in the program. We've learned from Harvard Business Review and other research, as well as our own experience, that including well-told stories in your presentation is a much more powerful way of communicating. So we've included some information on the concept in the program to share with you. We've also included a white paper on the value of storytelling in presentations. Please feel free to share it with others.
So let's get started.
Think for a minute. Do you feel like this? Where do you think public speaking ranks among the list of fears?
Public speaking is one of the top 5 fears of people everywhere. In many polls, it ranks above death, flying, spiders, and the fear of heights. Phyllis and I were just like you when we began. We both worked for Xerox, me in technology labs and Phyllis in field sales and management, when we got the tap on the shoulder to become trainers at their International Training Center in Leesburg, Virginia. Now, we were excited, but very nervous. It meant high-level exposure in our careers, but also lots of stress. Even the validation interview for the job was nerve-wracking. We were evaluated by 6 managers as we made a 15-minute presentation that seemed like 15 hours.
You are so right, John. I can remember how scary it was for me. For my first 2 years, I trained 2 groups of 25 sales reps and managers every week while being observed on closed-circuit television by the corporate senior management. It was a major move for Xerox in the technology field, and I was the technical sales facilitator as we trained 4,000 copier people to look for network and production sales opportunities. I remember thinking, would all this technology be boring to the copier people? How would I handle facilitating groups of 25 managers? Would they believe me? After all, I had only been with the company 7 years, and most of them had 15 to 35 years. I thought I might not remember all the words and all the activities, and doing the same thing over and over every day, I thought I might not remember and tell the same joke to the group that I had told them earlier in the day. But with coaching from experts and lots of encouraging feedback and lots of practice, I succeeded in becoming the lead facilitator and eventually a worldwide training manager.
What can you expect from this program? Well, we'll provide information and insights on the entire process, from organizing your ideas to continuous improvement. Your success depends upon your commitment. Your only limitations are those that you set on yourself.
And John, we'll discuss how to make your storytelling more memorable. Stories build trust and they develop relationships. Think about some of the most memorable presentations you've seen or heard. You may remember only a few sentences, if any, but you never forget how they made you feel and what they motivated you to do. We'll also help you add even more impact with your voice and body language.
Most presentations include a question and answer period. People worry that they can't answer the questions or someone will challenge them to a debate. We'll talk about preparation techniques to help reduce your stress and welcome these sessions.
Usually at the end of the presentation, you want the audience to take action. You can't just hope people will ask for a product or a service. You must tell them what you want them to do next and make it easy for them to do it. So we'll give you hints and tips and processes from the experts.
Phyllis, I know you teach a course on event project management at George Washington University, so I was delighted when you suggested we include content from your module on presenting and accepting awards.
Thanks, John. There is an art to putting people at ease and ensuring it goes smoothly. I'm sure everyone will appreciate the information and view the next award show differently. John, your suggestion to include how to deal with hecklers and distractions was a good add as well. They can be difficult, but our tips should help everyone handle them more efficiently and effectively.
Finally, we'll provide some tools and tips to help you continue to improve and make each presentation better than your last.
It's a great list, so let's get going. Imagine you're in one of these situations. You just gave your elevator speech to a hot prospect, and they asked you to come make a presentation. Or perhaps you're new on the team at the office, and the boss asked you to make a presentation on the marketing strategy for the new product. Or perhaps you feel passionate about a civic issue, and now you have the opportunity to speak before the county council. At first, you're elated at the opportunity. In your head, you're singing your praises about snagging that opportunity. Then it hits you. What am I doing? What have I gotten myself into? I have no clue how to organize this thing. How do I know what to include? What will keep their attention and not bore them? How much should I tell them? At what level should I speak? What do they know? How will I know if they're convinced?
Here's a few tips to get you started. Gather the forms we provided and your notes, and then find a quiet spot to work. Now, the first thing you want to do is to define your subject. You may already know the topic, but you'll need to decide the perspective and the depth of your message. Much of that depends on the allotted time you have for the presentation and your desired outcome. We'll provide some tools to help. Draft a topic in pencil on your planning worksheet, shown here. Then state the purpose of the presentation or story. Why are you going to be there? Is it part of a larger event, a meeting, or a celebration? What do you want the audience to do at the end of the presentation or story? Buy a product? Vote for you? Provide feedback on your marketing plan? Feel more confident planting orchids? Or signing up for your yoga class?
That's a good start, John. Following area in the form is for the analysis of the audience. Write some notes about what they already know on the topic. What do they know about you and your expertise on this subject? Use the key points area in your planning worksheet to list 3 to 5 major points in your presentation. One of the free forms that we provide to you is an audience demographic worksheet. You can use it to create a picture of the audience, including the size. It will help you create the right level of information and the style for your presentation. The information will also provide the characteristics that contribute to the audience attitudes, things such as economic status, education, age, sex, and cultural attributes such as what books do they read, what are their organizational affiliations. Culture also applies to international audiences. What's appropriate in one country may be offensive in another country. The best book to help you with this for international presentations is Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. It's by Morrison, Conway, and Borden. I use it in my GW classes. Notice the box for venue? This area will provide keys to the media required and the level of sophistication of your atmosphere. Use the content notes pages to make notes gathered from various sources, such as interviews, the web, books, and periodicals, whether they're electronic or hard copy. Be sure to include statistics and definitions or stories to add credibility and to support your point. Also note the source of your facts. Your story must be compelling and the audience must be able to relate to it. A memorable story must have a good beginning with a struggle or an obstacle to be overcome, a middle, and an end that resolves the problem and makes the audience the hero as they relate to the story hero or they take action. Finally, What do you want the audience to do after the presentation? Make it clear and make it easy. If it's not clear or easy, they won't put forth the effort. Once you have your basic presentation or story written, you'll want to refine it and have someone review it for grammar and ensure it achieves your objective. Your manager, a colleague, or a friend can fill this role for you. As you write this story, there's some things you want to keep in mind. So, John, let's take a look at those.
Always begin your message with impact and make it memorable. You've got to capture their attention within that first 60 to 90 seconds, or they'll tune you out. To make it memorable, include a story. Storytelling isn't just for the campfire, family gatherings, and the pub. It's the next big thing in business as well. We've passed the information age, and we're now entering the dream fulfillment age. And storytelling is a critical skill in this era. Bo Eason, storytelling coach, award-winning actor, and former football star, says, "The more personal you make it, the more universal it becomes." In business, customers or prospects want to hear about how other companies overcame challenges similar to theirs and how they were successful with your product or service. People want to relate or connect at the social level too. They want the success you or the people you've helped have achieved. One key is that you must include the challenges to sound authentic. It's also beneficial to use photos, models, and other visual aids. We think in pictures, we remember in pictures. Think of the last time you gave directions. For example, go to the McDonald's up the street here and then turn left. Then go until you see the big blue house with a white picket fence. The place you're looking for is right across the street from that, and so on. We use pictures as landmarks because it's far easier to remember that big blue house than it is to remember a specific street address.
The use of sound or music, if it's appropriate for the theme of your story, can add another dimension to the presentation and make it memorable. Think of the soundtracks of great movies. You probably recognize themes from movies like Star Wars, Goldfinger, Titanic, and Bodyguard. Sound helped make these movies memorable. Incorporating as many senses as possible helps reinforce your message. Use descriptive and persuasive language. Descriptive words help bring concepts to life. For example, the big gray wolf with the large fangs was directing his beady eyes on my throat, and he was drooling for a bite of my neck. Didn't that make it much more descriptive than there was a big wolf nearby and I was really afraid? How do you want the audience to feel? What sensations do you want them to remember? Provide notepaper or a learning journal because writing in the journal, filling in a form, or participating in an activity also reinforces your message and it makes it more memorable.
As we said, people buy from people they trust. Memorable stories build trust and develop relationships. Stories also allow you to connect with your audience. People usually spend more time planning and preparing for their vacation than they do for their career or important events like a presentation or telling a great story to get the audience's attention for their product, service, or cause. But planning and practicing your delivery is crucial. You've got to become comfortable with all aspects of your presentation. On the other hand, a memorized speech is not usually a memorable speech. In some situations, it's required, such as in political situations or certain award ceremonies where exact wording is required. But for the majority of speeches, practice and some handy notes is the best approach. Start by rehearsing the flow of your concepts using 4x6 cards. I like them better than 3x5 cards because they're easier to keep track of and easier to read.
There are varying opinions on this, but I like to practice aloud and try to emulate the setting. I remember one time my neighbor mentioned she saw me at the dining room table talking and gesturing, but she didn't see any guests at the table. She asked if I had ghosts for dinner, and I explained I was actually rehearsing a new training program and I wanted to practice with the setup like my classroom. She and I had quite a laugh, and she's reminded me of it several times since.
That's funny. I like to practice as well. I set up my camera and I record myself. Then I use our observation sheet and I critique myself. When I think I'm ready, I have a friend, a colleague, or my most difficult critic, my wife Sally, sit through a rehearsal and critique me.
I agree, John. That is a best practice. I also think that everyone should practice with the audiovisual or the models they'll be using in their presentation or story. It's been interesting to me in my work in business broadcasts, webinars, and seminars that the people who are new to presenting and the senior executives all like to run through the presentation with lights and audio and any other effects more than one time in the venue before showtime. Yet I've had several middle managers who say to me, "I've got it. There's no need to rehearse."
That's interesting, but perhaps that's why great speakers like Steve Jobs, the Roosevelts, or Winston Churchill are all so well remembered. Stories abound about their relentless practice so they could get everything from concepts and graphics to delivery techniques just right.
That's right, John. Our audience can check out YouTube for some speeches, like Steve Jobs' announcement of the iPod and his 2005 speech to the graduates at Stanford University. That was truly memorable. Two final comments before we move to our next topic. Everyone should time their speech. You and I have discussed the number of words per minute spoken as we've prepared this webinar. Recording is a good way to check your time and your pacing and pausing. Finally, don't practice until you have your speech memorized or you'll be so sick of hearing it you become bored with it. When your critic says it's good to go. Let's talk about the impact of your voice for a moment. Many speakers worry that they'll have a shaky or a weak voice. Others worry about the volume. Speaking strong and confident commands the attention of the audience. Confidence and strength in your voice can come from confidence in your content and practice, not from yelling. Find the balance between whispering and yelling. It's your middle voice. Speaking up with the right volume and inflection will focus the audience on your message. But what is not often considered are the other qualities that your voice can add to your message.
What kinds of things can people do to give their voice greater impact?
Let's begin with the simplest things first. You don't know how you sound until you hear yourself. And people are reluctant to record their voice, but it's the best way to hear what your audience hears. Play back the recording and listen. Pace is something that many people struggle with in presenting. When we're nervous, we rush through what we have to say. Pacing can help your stress on the important words. Inflection can also help you emphasize key words. Placing emphasis on certain words can convey emotions such as passion or pain, caring, and commitment. Look at your text and choose the words that should be emphasized. I bold them in my speeches. Pausing after important points can add impact and let the audience know what I think is important. Some speakers repeat a few words for emphasis. I often listen to famous speakers just for style. Using these techniques can add interest and get cheers rather than snoozes.
One of the things that bothers me most is spacing or thinking words such as, and you know? We often hear those in interview sessions, on talk shows, or on the news, but it's better to take a second or two of silence than to constantly use those words. I remember being taught to write my thinking word on the back of a card on my desk to remind me not to use it. Another good practice is to use your smartphone or tablet to record a voicemail message you plan to leave or your notes from a meeting or conference. Then listen to that playback. You'll quickly uncover your filler words as well as your speaking pace and modulation. It's definitely worth the time and effort.
The last one you can practice anywhere. Learn to breathe fully. Most people run out of breath at the end of a sentence, and the sentence ends on a down note, making the ear think you're finished. Standing tall and taking a full breath and speaking using your diaphragm will allow you to finish on an up note. This will cause the listener to anticipate your next thought. John, these are great tips for the voice, but what about body language?
I'm glad you asked about that. Much of the research on nonverbal communication indicates that over 65% of communication is nonverbal, and that people decide to listen to someone based on their first impression. Yet many people pay little or no attention to the nonverbal messages they're sending. In the book Louder Than Words by Joe Navarro, a former FBI special agent, he says that nonverbal skills are more than just what we do physically when speaking. He says it also includes neatness, punctuality, preparedness, attentiveness, and hard work. The key to success with nonverbal communication is awareness of these factors and focusing on creating comfort and trust. As we said earlier, practice will build confidence and comfort with your content and delivery. If you're comfortable, it helps make your audience comfortable. Sharing your story with passion and feeling will resonate and build trust with your audience.
Speaking of comfortable, John, I've noticed that you don't always have to wear a business suit, but you should be neat, match the setting, and dress one step above the audience. How you dress communicates respect for yourself and for your audience. Good grooming also communicates respect. And there's magic in a smile. A sincere smile includes not only the muscles surrounding the mouth, but also the crow's feet near the eyes. Elements such as posture, eye contact, and movement play a role in our ability to communicate and connect with the audience. I've seen people slouching and looking down or standing in one spot for the whole speech. And then some other people pace up and down and demonstrate other restless movements.
Yeah, I know. That can be very distracting. And you can lose your audience's focus on the topic as they try to follow you around. You do, however, want to have good posture and good eye contact, making sure to view each section of the audience and making eye contact with one or more persons in each section. Gestures also require careful attention because they can mean different things in different cultures, and you might unconsciously convey things you definitely don't want to communicate. Our in-depth training will cover the most effective body positions and movements.
Speaking of gestures, John, I see a lot of hands waving in the Q&A sessions. I think we should take a minute to dispel some of the fears of these sessions.
Good idea.
Preparation, rehearsal, and poise are the keys to successfully handling question and answer sessions. The first step is anticipate the questions. You may not have been able to cover everything about the topic in your story or presentation. So you can brainstorm with a friend or a colleague about the possible questions that could arise. Then you can list them on some 4x6 cards and write out your response. Practicing the responses will help you sound smooth and feel confident. Don't forget to make sure the response relates back to the key points. You can also check your notes to ensure you've defined terms that you've used and selected the best words to convey your meaning. That will eliminate some of the questions and misunderstandings.
I also find that taking a few moments of silence to collect my composure and gather my thoughts before answering is a good idea. Even though you may have a rehearsed response, silence communicates that you're considering the question. It also gives you time to sort out poorly stated questions.
Good point, John. We both do a lot of international training, and we've discussed the importance of repeating the question. It helps to clarify the question, ensures everyone heard the question, and it buys you time to choose the best response.
Yes, and if it's a big audience, you should have assistants who can get a microphone to the audience member with the question so everyone can hear what's said.
Finally, it's important that your nonverbal cues communicate you're strong and confident. The tips above will help you with that, and there are many more in our full course. Ending on a high note is always a topic in my university course. I tell my students that people remember several things about an event, a story or a presentation, and they remember how they felt. They remember the beginning and they remember the end. They often forget exactly what happened in the middle, as long as it was not a disaster. I often provide the ending of a cruise as an example of ending on a low note. The vacationers are all sitting in the hallways with their little overnight bags, waiting for the color of their luggage tags to be called so they can disembark. What a downer to a great vacation. At least one of the cruise lines has tried to remedy it with showing a movie and interrupting to call tag colors. I would much rather recall the end to an event put on by General Electric, which ended with a memorable comment, a well-known song, and fantastic fireworks. Everyone left on such a high note.
Here's some tips to remember about creating great endings. First, tell the audience that you're about to conclude, and then make sure you do. Some people have several false closes, and that can irritate the audience and get them to leave before the Q&A or the call to action. Once you say you're concluding, briefly review your main points so the audience remembers them. Then end with a brief but memorable comment. You can refer back to your opening story or theme, congratulate the audience on taking the action to attend, use a famous quote if it fits, or provide a challenge to take action on what you've told them. You might also ask them to repeat some phrase you told them several times in your speech.
Let's talk for a minute about award ceremonies. We see in this picture some trophies, but an award can be anything from a certificate or a long service pin to a trophy like the Oscar or the green jacket in golf. Award ceremonies are important events in people's lives, and yet we see so many awkward moments in the award events. The recipient wants it to be memorable, and the presenter wants it to go smoothly and to look professional. The short exchange should be well structured and the message a heartfelt acknowledgement of the achievement. A key to success is to prepare the comments acknowledging the accomplishment of the recipient and the challenges that he or she may have had to overcome to reach that level of success. To appear smooth, the presenters need to know the expected length of their presentation and where to locate the award, or who will hand it to him or her and from where. The photo area should be marked on the floor with an X. That way, everyone will know where to stand, and it provides a good marking for photo opportunities. The presenter should also know where the recipients are located in the audience, so they can coordinate their comments with the amount of time it'll take for the recipient to reach the presentation area. If the awards are on a table, the presenter must know the order of the recipients relative to the placement of the awards on the table. For example, are they lined up left to right or front to back?
As a recipient, I know that it's nice to have a surprise, but it's also very uncomfortable to be expected to say a few words of gratitude and without having any advanced knowledge of the expectation. Recipients also need to know what they'll be receiving. For example, the Oscar weighs 8.5 pounds, and probably every nominee already knows that, but sometimes a picture gets presented and it can be very heavy or unwieldy. Recipients need to know what to expect so they can be prepared to handle it properly and not drop it. They also need to know what type of response, if any, is needed so they can prepare their comments.
Well, John, our next item is information on working with technology. This is something that can be distracting for both the speaker and the audience if not handled correctly. Let's start with the audio portion of audio visuals, and then we'll move to the visuals. Audio equipment can range from a simple PA system with a microphone on a lectern to an extensive concert or production stage setup found in events. Most of the time, the speaker is provided a lectern microphone or a lavalier, the kind that includes a body pack that you see on TV shows. Most people prefer a lavalier because it provides the greatest impact as it doesn't restrict your movement as a speaker. I have 2 important tips for using a mic. First, test before the event to ensure the volume and the quality are right for you. And second, remember to turn it off when you're not performing. There have been many embarrassing situations with that last hint. Private conversations have been broadcast to the whole audience, and often they've gone viral on the internet. Also, I know you and I have both saved the day turning off the system when a speaker's forgotten to turn off the mic and they're headed for the bathroom. Finally, if the presentation includes recorded music or live musicians, we recommend practice for the incorporation and have someone there to cue the speaker at the right note.
Good advice. In addition, here's some tips for using visuals. Computer-generated graphics, lights, and special effects can be exciting, motivating, and entertaining to the audience. First, we recommend using a remote for the PC, as it removes the location restriction and lets you be more engaging and conversational. Second, we suggest more pictures and fewer words in your slides. A festival of slides with text is boring. Remember, people think in pictures, so provide memorable pictures and practice coordinating your talk track with those pictures. A good resource on this topic is Nancy Duarte's book, Resonate. Don't forget to time your entire presentation so you don't need to rush through. Your audience will be sensitive to that. If you're including video or website projection, have them queued up and practice multiple times transitioning from one to the other and back. Also, one person should be responsible for all the transitions or errors are much more likely to occur. And finally, with attention getting special effects like descending balloons, confetti, fog, or pyrotechniques, better known as fireworks, digital avatars, rain and snow, and so on, it's critical to practice and include professionals. This is especially true with fog and fireworks, which almost certainly require fire marshal permits. Use these special effects at the end so they don't affect other presentations, or worse, land on the guests' dinners.
John, I have a final note on this based on my personal experience. An iMac screen should be used when there's over 200 people or in a venue with a partially obstructed view. These large screens enable the projection of current or concurrent action so everyone has a good view. I've also used rear projection to hide equipment in formal dinners with speeches, or to hide the audiovisual expert when the speaker is a real non-tech type and they had multiple things to project, such as going out to a website, videos, and then their slides.
Here's a bonus item for you. We want to provide a few words about handling hecklers and distractions. Let's take the easier one first, distractions. A number of things can be distracting to a speaker. First, understand that with larger groups, there will always be people leaving to go to the restroom or to take phone calls. So if your audience starts looking like deer in the headlights, or you sense that they're drifting off, it's probably time for a much-needed break. Offer a few minutes for coffee and a bio break. You might also need to increase your physical movement or modulate your voice to regain their attention. Don't be put off by coughs or sneezes. If the person feels the need, they'll leave to get a drink, cough drop, or tissue. We hope. Got whisperers in the audience? The folks seated near whisperers will usually shut them down for you. Something else in this area is lateness. Late arrivals finding their way to a seat is always a distraction, and it can be especially distracting if it's the senior person in an audience. So 2 tips. If it's an attendee, and depending upon the size of the group, you can make a comment and allow for them to offer an apology. At Xerox in our training sessions, we used to make them sing or contribute $1 to a charity or a group treat. On the other hand, if it's the senior person who's missing from your audience, check with a second in command to see if you should start or offer a short break until that senior person arrives.
The second part of this topic is hecklers, and they're a real challenge for speakers. My training on this topic began way back when I worked for a telephone company in customer service. We had training for dealing with difficult people. The advice not only works with difficult people, but also with hecklers. Their first rule was to pause and acknowledge the interruption and get a clue from this person. If the person is rude, then be very courteous and polite. If she's angry, remain calm and pleasant. Don't mirror their behavior. If you get quiet, it's shocking to the heckler, and it's not what they want. They often want a debate. I liked Lady Bird Johnson's tactic when she allowed a heckler to say his piece on her husband's stand on civil rights. Then she replied, "This is a country of many viewpoints. I respect your right to express your own. Now it's my turn to express mine." She often got applause for her reply, and she quickly regained control of the situation. A quiet pause can show how rude they're being, and it can allow security to remove the heckler or the audience to shut him or her down. Planning ahead can also be very beneficial. If you're speaking on a controversial topic, anticipate some angry interruptions and plan your response to the anticipated statements of the opposing view. Most comedians have a great one-liner prepared to respond, but this may not always be the right response depending on the topic and the situation and your personality. However, remaining calm and confident is always beneficial.
Good advice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far. Now let's take a look to the future. This is not the end. Rather, it's just the beginning. We suggest several courses of action. First, if you like what you've seen and heard so far, you can sign up for our full 4-module course on presentations and storytelling for business. Check out our homepage at digiprintacademy.com. Second, study the great storytellers and presenters. You can find Steve Jobs' videos on YouTube. Observe others such as Sir Richard Branson, Sheryl Sandberg, and Ellen DeGeneres. Listen to Bruce Springsteen's lyrics. He's fantastic at painting a picture with his words. Watch a Walt Disney movie and notice how they focus on the details and draw you into their story. The TED Talks are particularly good. Andrew Stanton, writer of Toy Story, is among my favorites. His TED Talk is absolutely great on how the stories behind movies capture your interest. Next, observe the positives and negatives you see on television and at events. Keep notes of do's and don'ts. Take one skill at a time and work on it. It takes time and practice. You can't expect to go from where you are today to being a storytelling superstar like those we mentioned in just a week. But you can become an outstanding presenter or storyteller with practice. So practice and get good feedback. If you liked what you heard and saw, join us for more details. You can sign up for our white paper on storytelling for business success and the free forms on our website. Make a note of the link shown here. You will also get our blog and updates for free. We don't spam and we don't flood your email with daily messages. You can download the freebies and you can get no more than one message per week. Of course, you can always visit the website for more. You can also sign up for the full 4-module course. It's packed with good information and a free ebook. Make note of the site link shown on the screen.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to more opportunities to serve you. Bye.